Hi everyone, it's Angela here from Gracefield Physio Pain Slayers with our 7 tips for maintaining health and strength at any age if you're a woman. So this is Healthy Women, the Pain Slayers way. So tip number 1 is to keep moving. So it is important that during the day, whatever we're doing, we need to keep moving. So if you're older and you've been unwell and you're at home recovering, you still need to keep moving. So even just walking around the house, walking around the yard, any of those incidental movements is going to help us to keep healthy. Lying around watching TV or sitting reading the paper all day is really not helpful. So any movement will do. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to try and restrict how long we're sitting for. So if we're sitting for more than 30 minutes at a time, it can be quite detrimental to the strength around our pelvis and can end up giving us some lower back pain, and it causes pelvic floor weakness. So we want to restrict our sitting to 30 minutes at a time. That doesn't mean you get up from sitting for 30 minutes, walk around for 1 minute and sit down again for 30 minutes. So we need to keep moving. If you're working in an office, you may need to go back and sit down and work for another 30 minutes. But if you've been sitting all day, then it's really important to go for a walk after work, go to the gym, and get moving. Do things at home that keep you moving. So sitting is the new smoking. It is really bad for the muscles in our glutes, which help us to stand upright. So you might, if you do have a sedentary job and you do sit a lot, you might then notice that if you're at a party and you're forced to stand up all night, you find it really hard. So you do this all the time and you're always trying to lean against something or sit down. It's usually because you don't have the strength here because you've been sitting so much. So really important to restrict how long we're sitting for at one time. Our muscles also get used to that position. So if you've been sitting too long, so if I'm sitting in the chair and I've been sitting here a lot, when you go to get up, you tend to stay bent forward a bit. So it changes our whole posture. So we need to try and do things upright. So that's tip number 2. Don't sit for too long, or not more than 30 minutes. Tip number 3 is to make sure that we maintain a strong pelvic floor. Now, you might do your pelvic floor exercises during the day and then not think about them again. That is not going to give you a strong pelvic floor. And contrary to popular belief, if you go to the gym and do lots of plank work or Pilates work thinking that you're strengthening your pelvic floor, you could actually be weakening it. So you may be putting a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. So especially with planks. So I'm not a big fan of full length planks for women who have had children, or especially straight afterwards. So a lot of the time when I watch somebody at the gym doing a plank, they're holding their breath, increasing this intra-abdominal pressure. They're usually looking down instead of straight forward. Actually puts a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor, okay? And then if you're doing a lot of high impact exercise that loads your pelvic floor up, weights, holding on to weights, doing a lot of squatting really loads your pelvic floor. So it's important that we actually activate those pelvic floor muscles if we are doing any of those exercises, but just be mindful that just those type of exercises can make us very fit cardiovascular wise, but they may be detrimental to your pelvic floor. Now, so that's a pelvic floor weakness. If we're loading up the abdominal cavity and putting pressure on the pelvic floor will weaken. Those of us who do a lot of reformer Pilates and are very good at activating our pelvic floor, or yoga and very good at activating our pelvic floor all the time, can end up then overactivating your pelvic floor. So your pelvic floor then is activating all the time, and then it becomes weak as well because it doesn't get a chance to relax. So we need to, if we're doing any weight-bearing exercise, think of lifting our pelvic floor up, But then we must make sure that we actually relax the pelvic floor as well. So if we're doing specific pelvic floor exercises and we're holding for say 5 seconds, we need to relax for 5 seconds as well. So maintaining a strong pelvic floor is not just about doing pelvic floor exercises. It's about activating the pelvic floor at the right time. So when we go to lift something, push something, pull something, we can breathe out and lift through our pelvic floor. That's going to get it working to our advantage in our everyday tasks, and that's the way it's supposed to work. Okay, it works with our diaphragm, with the breath work as well. So holding our breath is not going to work our pelvic floor. Making sure that you're breathing, the diaphragm that helps our lungs to fill up with air will work with the pelvic floor, which is another diaphragm. So very important to remember those things. The other way we can end up with a weak pelvic floor is if we hold on too long before we need to go to the toilet. So if we're holding on for more than 2 hours, that can be quite detrimental. If we are going to the toilet too often, that can be detrimental. So we need to make sure that we're going to the toilet about 3 times during the day and no more than twice at night time. So going to the toilet too often can have a devastating effect on our pelvic floor muscles as well. If we're going to the toilet and moving our bowels and you're sitting on a toilet seat that is too high for you, which every Western toilet seat is, that can cause straining as well. So if you're sitting on the toilet for a period of time and you're trying to push things out, that is not good. So we need to make sure that we've got our feet up, so maybe on a little stool, or a packet of unopened toilet paper is very helpful. Brings our knees up higher than our hips, and it actually positions the rectum so that it's easier to evacuate what's in there. So that way our pelvic floor is not under any pressure and it can work the way that it needs to work. So any pushing, that sort of thing, is not going to be helpful. We can take our time on the toilet, so it's not necessary you sit down on the toilet, go really quickly and leave. It's okay to take a little bit of time so that we're not forcing that pelvic floor to work. So then the other things that can help to cause weakness in our pelvic floor might be taking some type of medication. So I know codeine you can't get without a prescription now, but lots of people can become addicted to it, and it causes a sluggish bowel. So we often will become constipated with codeine, and then that has a devastating effect on our pelvic floor also. So if constipation causes a devastating effect on our pelvic floor, then we need to do the opposite. So lots of fiber-rich foods and water. So fiber-rich foods are more important than taking fiber like Metamucil and stuff like that, okay? So for our healthy bowel, we need to make sure that it's the foods that are containing the fiber and the water, not all the supplements, which sometimes we may need, but we don't want to rely on them. So it's better for our pelvic floor muscles to have the food to bulk up the bowel and make that easier to work than the supplements. So those are a few pelvic floor tips, which is very important. So number 4 is to maintain strong bones. So we need to maintain strong bones by weight-bearing exercise. So again, if we're sitting all day, there's no weight going through our skeleton, like a little bit going through our sitting bones if we're sitting properly, but apart from that, not much. So we need to maintain strong bones. So standing is weight-bearing, walking is weight-bearing. All of those exercises are going to help to keep our bones strong around our pelvis. To keep our bones strong around our upper body, it can be as simple as using like the kitchen bench. So you can pretend this is a kitchen bench and doing our like modified type push-ups, leaning towards the kitchen bench, forwards and backwards, so that way the weight is distributed through our arms and then through our upper back, which is where a lot of women can get osteoporosis in their upper back and hips. So weight-bearing exercise, it doesn't mean that you have to hold weights. Body weight is just as good, but as long as you're doing it on a daily basis. So strong bones with load-bearing exercise. Making sure you get a bit of sunlight as well helps, because we can't take vitamin D into our system without the sun, so that's important as well. And some of us might be on vitamin D supplements and things like that. But if you're not, enough sun, make sure you're doing load-bearing exercises. So number 5 is maintaining good posture and balance. Okay, so believe it or not, our pelvic floor muscle is a balance muscle. So if our pelvic floor is weak, our balance is going to be off as well. So there's another reason why we need to make sure the pelvic floor is working properly. So balancing, like just even standing on one leg, can be quite difficult for people. So a little bit of a practice standing on one leg, and with your eyes closed, you can test your own balance. If we have poor balance, we're more likely to trip, fall, we end up with poor spatial awareness. It's really important to do some sort of balance type exercises so that we know where our body is in space. Posture, if we're weak in our postural muscles because we do a lot of sitting and we're not that active, then we're going to start slouching and slumping, which causes all sorts of pain anyway. Okay, so nice upright posture. Make sure that our arms and our legs are sitting in our skeleton the way they should, which means that they're going to work better. So you're going to be able to pick things up better if you've got a good posture. You're going to be able to bend down and pick things up better if you've got good posture. So you've got these muscles working, okay? So a good trick, if you are standing on one leg, is to make sure that you can stand up tall, squeezing your bottom. You can even lift your pelvic floor up, but you're thinking long body. So the same if you're standing on two legs, we're thinking nice and long, tall through the crown of our head, so that our skeleton is sitting up on top of each other. Our head is on top of our skeleton, not forward. The moment your head comes forward, your posture's out and your balance is going to be off. So very important to maintain good balance and posture. Number 6 is an important thing, I think, is to maybe exercise with a friend. So if you're exercising yourself, you may be great at being accountable to yourself, which is a very good trait to have. A lot of people find they need to be accountable to somebody else. So exercising with a friend, you're much less likely to let down a friend than you are yourself. So exercising with a friend can be helpful for that overall health. And strong, healthy women need friends to talk to as well. So it might not just be the exercise factor, it might be that you need to get some stuff off your chest. So especially if you're at home and it's just you and your husband, husbands don't always want to listen to what women want to talk about, and that's just normal. So you do sometimes need a girlfriend to offload. So for your mental health, then it's important to make sure that you're either talking to a friend or exercising with a friend so that you can get stuff off your chest. So that's number 6. So number 7 is just to do a few simple exercises on a daily basis. So I've picked a couple on my list. So I have a chair here. Sitting to standing, so just standing up, sitting down, nice and slowly. Standing up, sitting down maintains a lot of strength in our glutes, especially when you squeeze your butt when you come up, so we don't end up with sagging pants. Very important exercise. So if you find that you can't get out of a chair unless you do this, then you need to do some sit to stand. So try to do it without holding on. So that's the number 1 exercise. The next one I've got is coming up and down on your toes. So that's for your balance and foot strength. So we use shoes a lot. Now I have got shoes on, but we want to just go up and down on our toes. And if you can, keeping your heels together, it's actually going to work all these pelvic muscles as well. But it's good for our posture, it's good for our balance, and it's good for our foot strength. So we need to be walking around barefoot sometime, at least for 20 minutes during the week. so that we maintain those muscles in our feet, okay? Our feet are so used to being in shoes. So that's a really good one to do with no shoes on. Then I've got the push-up one that you can do at your desk or the kitchen bench. So you can do your modified push-ups, and because this is like a modified plank as well, so it's not loading up your pelvic floor as much, but you need to make sure that you squeeze your butt, lift your pelvic floor when you do it. So weight going through the upper body so that that thoracic spine is getting loaded up a bit. And the other thing is, if you are at your desk at work, if you're sitting a lot, if you get a stand-up desk, that could be even better, or a desk that you can alter, so you can stand up sometimes, sit down sometimes, because going straight from sitting to standing for too long can be difficult as well. And I think they have them at Officeworks, so they're pretty easy to get. A walk. Walking is the best form of exercise if you've got lower back pain, because when you walk properly and swing your arms and stand up straight, leading with your pelvis, you are getting a body-on-body rotation. So your upper body is rotating over the lower body. So you get some gentle mobility happening through the back. So very good for lower back pain. Walking, very good. So the other one that I like to do, you can hold onto the kitchen bench or the back of a chair, is to do some squats. So remember what I said earlier, squats, you need to lift your pelvic floor up. So you can do wide leg squats or narrow squats, but when you come down into this squat position, you don't want to arch your back and have your butt out too much. You want to be able to see your toes, but you want to lift your pelvic floor when you're at the bottom of the squat. But that will make sure that you maintain nice, strong legs. That way you can get down, up and down off the floor with ease. So squatting, 20 squats a day will help you to be able to get up and down off the floor much easier. One more, which is, no, that was the last one. So I've forgotten my list. So staying healthy is easy with just those few little tips. So just those 7 tips and a few exercises daily will help you to maintain that health and strength at any age of your life, as long as you do it every day.